recorded by Hadley Media, and as far as I know, anyone else recording this? No, okay. So I'm calling the meeting to order, and our first order of business is Speaker Heidi Ritchie, Director of Policy and Advocacy at Mass Audubon. I guess we have to wait.
Hi Heidi, can you hear us? Hi Heidi.
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Thank you. My computer decided it wanted to do an update 2 minutes ago, but I'm here.
So glad you could join us tonight.
Great. So am I able to share my screen to share my slides?
I think so,
I
yeah.
think so.
Try.
We have a
Okay,
support, so if we need to make some adjustments, we can.
okay, great. And I don't know if I know I don't know if I've met any of you folks, so I don't know if you want to introduce yourselves or just have me dive right in.
We can do that. I'm Jack Sykowski.
Kathy Nagella.
Kathy Nelson.
Catalina Rubla.
Great. So nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting me to do this or inviting us to do this. So let's see. Here's my presentation.
It looks like it's working.
And, yep, I just need to start it in presentation mode. Get it to do that. Great. So thank you for asking Mass Audubon to come and present to you, and thank you for all the work you're doing as Hadley's Climate Change Committee. I think you had asked for about 30-minute presentation, is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll try to keep it to that. And
And
if I
Heidi,
need to,
we do have another guest here. Hi Helen and Ro. We have some people joining us. It's nice to see that you made it.
Hi, thank you for the invite.
oh, wonderful. Okay, great. And this is also being recorded, I assume for your local cable or
Yes, Hadley YouTube.
great. Okay, I'll start with a brief introduction, just kind of the way we approach things at Mass Audubon. We have a well-defined action agenda with clearly measurable goals, and they're interrelated. And then we engage with people at our wildlife sanctuaries across the state and through our educational programming. We also have on the ground scientists doing conservation, and we also have land protection staff. So we do protection, restoration, management. And then we have our policy and advocacy staff, which I'm part of, advancing policy solutions for systemic change. And together, our overall goal is to achieve natural climate solutions. Nature and climate solutions. So this is just a quick map of Mass Audubon's properties across the state and a little bit of key facts about us. We have 25 sites and many, many visitors they visit with us and take our educational programs. You asked for a little bit of history of Mass Audubon, so I included just a few slides on that. You may know Mass Audubon was founded in 1896 by two women from Boston who were really appalled by the indiscriminate slaughter of birds. Birds were being killed by the millions for use in the millinery trade as ornamentation on people's clothing. And they worked to educate people about that issue and how it was decimating bird populations, and convince people to no longer undertake that practice. And then Mass Audubon continued with its advocacy and worked with Congress and worked to pass the first bird protection laws, the Federal Migratory Bird Treaty Act and the Lacey Act, and continued working on this, throughout our entire history. We worked, not me, it was before my time, but Mass Audubon staff worked with Rachel Carson on the banning of DDT, which was really destroying all of our raptors, our bald eagles and hawks and owls, etc. And then over the decades, stuff that I'm more familiar with, we've worked on passing wetlands and water resources protection laws and many other laws. More recently, a key climate and energy laws, starting with the Global Warming Solutions Act in 2008 and a number of others since then. And of course, working with many partners for funding for land and water conservation. You know, decades ago, a lot of the work that we did was on stopping particular large projects that were a really bad idea. So here I have from the New York Times, when in the mid 1980s, there was a proposal to divert the Connecticut River into the Quabbin Reservoir. I don't know if any of you remember that, but they were.
Yeah, that was a big deal around here.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it was a really bad idea for a number of different reasons. And they said, oh, Boston's running out of water. Well, Mass Audubon did a study called Water Futures. And what we uncovered was that 1/3 of the water that was leaving the Quabbin never reached its destination because the pipes were so leaky. So we said, instead, let's invest in fixing the pipes. And now MWA has a surplus and is looking to connect more communities in eastern Massachusetts, which is probably a darn good thing, because with all the PFAS contamination, and the Quabbin is still clean of PFAS, whereas many of the local supplies are not. So, but there's lots of other big projects that we were involved in stopping, the Route 2 through the Wendell State Forest, and a second major airport, and the Attleboro Mall, and many others. So today the challenges are very different, but they're no more challenging. They probably are more challenging. And
Heidi, if I can jump in with a question, like how do you pick which projects to work on?
yeah, so these days, we don't really work so much on local project issues, except in very rare circumstances. We look more at the overall picture of what's happening and where we see a pattern. Then we work for systemic statewide policy change. But I'll talk some more about that in relation to the campaigns that we have going. And there's fewer of these really bad, damaging, sort of large infrastructure projects these days. Back from ever since the Weld administration did Fix It First and stop building new highways, for example. So that's why I say the challenges are different, but we still all need to work together. For the big picture context, think about the land cover and land use across Massachusetts. We're a relatively small state, about 5 million acres. I think there's about 7 million people in the state. So, some folks say that we're a place where there's like more people living in proximity to more trees than almost anywhere else in the world. We're very fortunate that about 60% of the state is still forested. So almost 1/3 of the state is permanently protected from development. And we're working hard to get to the goal of 30 by 30, and then 40% by 2050. About a little less than a quarter of the state is developed, and actually about half of it is still up for grabs. It's neither developed nor protected. So the decisions we make today and in the coming years are going to have a big impact on the future for the state. Mass Audubon, as I mentioned earlier, we have an action agenda, and we have 3 big goals that are all interrelated, addressing the crises of loss of biodiversity, climate change, and the inequitable access to nature and its benefits. So our goals are interdependent, and DEI and justice is integrated into everything that we're doing. These are our 3 goals: protect and restore, steward resilient landscapes, advance and include equitable access to nature, and mobilize to fight climate change. And I'll talk about how they're interrelated. So, of course, just at the most fundamental level, nature is our best and lowest cost and most effective solution to so many of our problems. Sorry about that. And it provides so many, our forests in particular provide so many functions. protecting our water supplies. And as we have these more intense storms and more frequent droughts, the role of the forest in absorbing and infiltrating that water becomes ever more important. But also, of course, many other values like wildlife habitat, outdoor recreation, and quality of life. We have 4 major campaigns that we're working on. One is the siting of renewable energy in a way that still protects nature. We have a Coalition for Nature campaign that we're undertaking with many other partners. We're working to protect our raptors and other wildlife from the effects of rodenticides. And we're working on restoration now. It's not enough anymore to protect land. We need to restore our critical ecosystems that have been degraded by past human activity. So just to start on the responsible energy siting, sure, you being a climate change committee are all well aware of this. But you know, we need to really scale up the deployment of solar power and other renewable energy sources. And at the same time, we've been seeing thousands of acres of forest land and farmland as well converted to large-scale ground-mounted solar arrays. So Mass Audubon is concerned about this, not only because of the ecological impacts, but because of this chart, which you may have seen. This is from the state's decarbonization plan and their clean energy and climate plans. We're working to get to net zero emissions by 2050. But there's that last tail end of the emissions, the last 15%, which will be very, very difficult to eliminate entirely. So we need to offset them. And the very best technology and really the only technology at scale that we know of to offset those emissions, to absorb that carbon and store it away, is forests and wetlands, our natural landscape, through photosynthesis. So right now, the natural lands, they absorb about 10% of our emissions. We need to retain that and get it up. So when we looked at the pattern of solar development that's been happening over the past decade or so, and there's been a lot of concern about that, and we asked the question, like, can we have the solar that we need and yet still protect the nature, the forests that we have? And we undertook this study called Growing Solar, Protecting Nature, and we looked at several different scenarios. We worked with Harvard Forest and an energy consulting firm, and I focused in particular on this middle scenario. So the first one is kind of business as usual, just keep cutting down the forest to build more solar. The middle one, we looked at, could we exclude the most important, most essential lands, our highest biodiversity and highest carbon value lands, our prime farmland, which, you know, I'm sure you're well aware in Hadley and down there in the Connecticut Valley. Massachusetts does not have a lot of prime farmland. It's important to grow our food locally and sustainably. And we found that actually there was still quite a bit of land left when you cut out those high value, high ecological importance lands, and that we can get to the targets that the state has for 26 gigawatts of solar power by 2050 using those other lands and putting solar on buildings and parking lots and the like. It's a bit more expensive, but when you offset the cost of the lost value of the carbon in the forest and the other functions of the forest, it more than balances out to do it this way. So with our scenario, we can have much less loss of the carbon in the forest. So instead of the 6 million metric tons of loss of carbon storage in our forests that we're on track for with the business as usual, we can get that down to 1 million tons and then not impact any of our highest biodiversity lands or our prime farmlands.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have you all, or has the state mapped out? I mean, a while back I heard they were going to map out the best places to put solar, like what you're talking about. Has that happened?
They did a similar study, it was with a different methodology, but it came to sort of similar general findings. They're in the process now. You may be aware there was a law passed last year that's completely overhauling the way that clean energy systems are going to be cited and permitted in the state. They're holding some public sessions. They just had the first one this afternoon. And it was recorded and they're all open to the public and they take questions. You can find it on the state's website. And I can give you the link if you need it. And so that new law is going to include site suitability standards in the permitting, and we are quite hopeful that they're going to exclude some of these more sensitive lands from eligibility for building these projects, and also shifting the smart solar incentives so that the funding for development of solar energy will go more towards the projects we want to see that may be, you know, a little bit more challenging to build, but they don't have these impacts.
Like parking lots and roofs.
Yes, exactly. And you know, it's costs more and it's a little harder to do those projects, but the state's now looking to make it easier and also to remove some of the permitting barriers, like, you know, let's work with the towns to make it easier to build these in a built environment. So lots of progress, but there's opportunities for you to weigh in. They're going to be doing these listening sessions, and then over the summer, they're going to be developing draft regulations. In the fall, there will be opportunity to comment on draft regulations. So it's really a good time to come up to speed on what's going on at the state level and get ready to weigh in.
So
And you can,
where in Massachusetts do you live?
I live in north central Massachusetts.
All right, so one thing we are looking at is trying to install a solar field on our old town landfill. It's a capped landfill.
Yeah,
And, you know, it's a pretty good location. It's not farmland, it's not forest, it's already disturbed. And we're hoping that over these next couple of years, we can, you know, that the town will approve it and we can have it happen.
yeah. Massachusetts is actually a leader in building solar arrays on landfills. As of a couple of years ago, there was a nationwide study that found that Massachusetts had done like more projects than almost any other state. So I think the state will help you figure out if, you know, if you can do that, unless there's some particular, you know, site specific technical challenge. But I mean, we did that in my town on our landfill too. So,
So did
okay.
you get financial help from the state to do that?
I am not sure. It was done a few years ago and I was not directly involved, but I know that they're
just-
working to provide support for community solar. So I would talk to the Green Communities Program if I were you, or
Yeah,
the DOER.
They don't get involved with solar at all.
Well, I'll bring that back to my boss in terms of questions about state policy that we can influence.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. There may be other sources of funding to help you out too. So,
Yeah, that's what I was asking you.
yep. So our second major campaign is the Nature for Massachusetts campaign, and this is a big campaign with many other groups looking to reach that 20%, 30% of the land protected by 2030 goal. There's going to be more funding needed, and so we're looking not to create new taxes, but to take some of the existing money from sales tax on outdoor recreation and sporting goods equipment, and direct that to protecting land. And this would be both, you know, rural land as well as in urban areas, and for all of the functions and values that I had talked about earlier. And I'm going to give you these slides, so if I go through anything too quickly, you know, don't worry about jotting it down. You'll be able to look at it in more detail later. These are the groups that are involved to date, and it's still growing.
And we have a trustees site in the center of town with Mount Warner.
Uh-huh. Great. Yeah, we work with them a lot. So. All right. The third campaign is Rescue Raptors. And while this may not appear to be climate change related. There actually is a climate connection because rodent populations are growing as our winters are getting warmer. Previously, winters had really knocked back the rodent populations every year, and now with the warmer winters, there's studies that actually showing that that's part of the rodent problem we have. Of course, a big part of the rodent problem is just general sanitation issues and how trash is managed. And also, there's a lot that can be done by sealing up foundations and excluding them from buildings. But what's been happening is that the over reliance on rodenticides and putting them in boxes outdoors where the rodents eat the rodenticide, they don't die right away. They can live for days, and they're often weakened and easy targets for raptors or other predators, foxes, coyotes, etc., to eat. And this causes secondary poisoning. We've had at least 4 bald eagles in Massachusetts that have died from rodenticide poisoning, probably more that are not known about. When you consider that there are only 100 breeding pairs, 200 eagles that reside here in Massachusetts. There are others that migrate through, but that 4 birds, that's like 5% of the total population of the birds. So and then there was a study that Tufts did on red-tailed hawks, and of all the red-tailed hawks that came into the facility and subsequently died of sometimes, oftentimes they were just injured, like they'd run into something or have been hit by a truck or whatever, but every single one of them had rodenticides in their bloodstream and in their organs. So this is a pervasive problem, not just in urban areas, but across suburban and rural areas as well. And there are other ways of controlling rodents without using these deadly poisons. So we are working hard to promote that, and we have campaigns in many, many different communities. We're working on education, organizing people, and then pushing for legislation. Municipalities can only regulate the use of pesticides on their own property. They can't regulate it on private property beyond what the state rules are. So we have a number of communities that have passed their own local rules, like Lowell even recently just banned the use on municipal property, and then several communities are petitioning the legislature for permission to regulate more broadly. And this map is actually out of date. We have over 80 different communities now that are involved in this in some way or another. And this is an example of where actually we are working at the local level as well as statewide. Our Climate Nature Champions program is helping people organize across all of these many different communities. So there's not much happening out in the valley yet, and we'd love to get more people involved.
It is tricky because there's a lot of farmers around here who are battling the mice and rats
Yep.
and need to rodenticides. Yeah.
Yep. And it really, the thing is that the rodenticides aren't the solution in the long term, because you're killing the animals that keep the rodents in check. And then you just get more of a problem. I was talking with a farmer in my area, a small farmer. He was really just like a resident with, kind of a nice piece of property that they raise chickens. And they somehow rats, even though they're in a very rural area, got into their property. And so he's been trapping them and being very careful. Is still, you're always going to have the food out in the chicken coop. So then they were getting into the chicken coop, and then he was doing live trapping and then killing them when he got them out of the live traps. I didn't ask him how he did that, but there are ways to deal with it. And I think rodents are always going to be a problem. I have problems with them myself around my home. We have mice, we have chipmunks, and it's a lot of it's, education and really focusing on the ways to keep the populations low. The final campaign I want to mention is wetlands restoration. And we have really strong protections for wetlands in Massachusetts, but we also have a really pervasive problem of wetlands that were historically altered in very significant ways, and they're never going to recover naturally on their own. They need some help. So this is one of our big priorities. It's my biggest priority in my own personal work plan. This is the definition of restoration: assisting in the recovery of an ecosystem that has been damaged, degraded, or destroyed. And then when you might ask, what do you mean by damaged or degraded? So here are a couple of examples. Dams, they not just hold the water back, but they create stagnant conditions. We have about 3,000 dams in Massachusetts. 90% of them no longer serve a useful purpose. People think that dams are flood protection. They're actually flood hazards. Many of these older dams are in poor condition. They are occupying the floodplain that otherwise could absorb water during the intense storms that we're seeing. And they prevent fish from swimming and passing up and down rivers, which is, fish and wildlife is very important connectivity with climate change. Animals need to be able to move around. Similarly, in ditches, this is an old cranberry bog, but also salt marshes and other abandoned sites. The ditches, they just continue to drain the wetland. This abandoned cranberry bog will never revert back to a natural wetland without the removal of the fill that was placed there and the restoration of the natural hydrology. And then we have other difficult problems like this. This is the Mattapoisett River. Many of our rivers are frequently, chronically dried up by over tapping of the groundwater supplies. And that, of course, is made worse with the droughts that we're having. So in terms of the restoration that we can do, our salt marshes are really in big trouble. They have thousands and thousands of ditches and embankments. So it's not just sea level rise. There are ways now to heal the salt marshes, very gentle ways, just using like hay from the salt marsh to put in the ditches and to help them grow the grass back naturally. Dams, the state is working to remove dams, but with so many of them, 3,000 of them, it's a big job. We only did 4 last year. At that rate, it's going to take 750 years to do all of them. Culverts, we've got 25,000 of them. Lots of communities are concerned about the condition of their culverts. And there is funding through the MVP program and other programs, but we need to do that work more quickly as well. And I mentioned cranberry bogs already. Of course, there's invasive plants too. And so there's a lot of work to be done, and we need to assist the natural environment by restoring those processes and reconnecting things, and of course, involving people in all that work. Here's an example of a river where you have like a natural flow, you have wood in the river, you have sediment moving naturally. All of those things are important for a naturally functioning river system. Whereas this shows a place where there's an old dam. You can see the dam up. I don't know if you can see my pointer up here. And it's 150 years of sediment and wood and everything. And then it downstream is deprived of all that, which it actually needs for habitat. So every day that dam stays in place, it's causing more damage. And the same thing with the ditches, as I already said. There's a lot about restoration in the state's climate plans and resiliency plans, and in the biodiversity strategy that is now coming out any day now. So, but we treat these restoration projects the same way we treat development. There's all these good, strong laws that were developed, were written decades ago to protect our wetlands from development. But when we make the restoration work go through the same hoops that development does, it's really slowing things down and increasing the cost. So ecological restoration right now is really hard because there's so many requirements, and it costs time and money and a lot of people working on it. but we can allow right now, all that damage that's getting worse and worse and worse day by day is allowed to stay in place. There's no mandate to clean it up. So we're looking to flip that switch and to make it easy to do the restoration and create incentives and to make it hard to keep the damage in place. So this would have many benefits for climate. Of course, our wetlands are really important for climate, again, absorbing and filtering water, providing stream flow during the dry times and recharging our aquifers. The wetlands are very high, rich in carbon, and they're really important for biodiversity. So they're important to all of our goals. And a lot of other states have really sped this work up. Like Pennsylvania last year removed 27 dams. And in New Hampshire and Vermont, you can remove a dam in a matter of months. So just to finish up, we have an action page. Here's our action alerts, so people can click on very easily and support any one of our campaigns. We have a Climate and Nature Champions program where if people want to get involved more deeply, you can sign up for this. There's also other levels of engagement. We have a monthly e-newsletter. That's a really easy thing to do on our main advocacy webpage, and all different levels of participation depending on how active. And then, also supporting related local efforts like yours. So people can get involved at whatever level they're interested in. They can just learn about this stuff. They can get involved locally, or they can participate in the statewide campaigns. And that's where I'll stop.
Wow, that was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Sure, yeah. I think I managed to stay on the 30 minutes as well. So.
Yeah, Heidi, you were right on for timing, but I'm wondering, this is interesting times that we're living in so many ways. So Massachusetts is a leader in climate action. That's wonderful. The federal government no longer is taking that same leadership role that they took a year ago.
Yep.
How do you folks balance all of that?
Well, it is a challenge, but we see working with the state, we've always worked very strongly at the state level anyway. And while there are challenges because like some of the money is going away at the federal level, we are committed to continuing to work with our state and local partners here in Massachusetts. And, I think that a lot of the initiatives that are underway here are just going to continue regardless.
Our climate change committee has had some victories. Hadley is now a green community, and a few years ago we weren't. So in 2023, I think we became a green community. I think that was the year, or was it 2024? Was it last August?
Thought it was in January, but
So that's a
it's been
plastic.
about a year.
We had a plastic bag ban put into place for the town. We were hoping that would happen at the state level. It hasn't. And, we're making some progress on moving some solar projects through, sort of 1 inch at a time here.
Yeah. Well, every little bit helps, and it creates momentum for faster progress. So,
Right. Well, we're trying to get it done.
Yeah.
Did
We
we
very
have-
much appreciate what you're doing.
No, I think we were concerned that, the current federal administration was cramping your style, but you guys have always just worked on the state level, so I guess you're not all that worried about Trump right now.
It's hard. Everything changes day to day so much at the federal level right now that it's almost a distraction. I can say that, we do get some federal grants. So far, we haven't been impacted directly. We see there's an impact on the state budget, and that's of great concern. But there's only so much that can be done. So we have to work within, what is it? I wouldn't say we don't work at all at the federal level, because we do work with national partners like the Land Trust Alliance and TNC to support things like, the Farm Bill that needs to be re-upped and all that. But we don't have an office in DC and, don't do that like kind of day-to-day sort of stuff. Focus more here. I think the state will be, it'll weather this and be in a strong position because all the work we're doing is, it's helping to make the state a stronger, healthier, more resilient place.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing a lot more than I ever knew about. I mean, I think of Audubon and think of, hurt animals and that's about it,
Yeah. Well, thank you for inviting me. And I encourage you to look at our, just go to massaudubon.org/advocate or advocacy. And I'll send you the PDF of my presentation.
Okay.
And you can sign up to participate more actively with us or just simply get our monthly e-newsletter and that will keep you informed. I do encourage you to learn more about what the state's doing with implementing this new energy siting law. Because
Yeah, that's really significant for our community.
A lot of people are concerned that it'll go opposite to what you're talking about, that, getting, I can't think of the word I want, I'm tired today, but, that the state is gonna say, sure, go ahead and cut down all those trees, So, but from what you say, they're pretty aware of the harm of that, so.
They are. And the towns, though, are going to need to issue a single consolidated permit for these projects. It's not going to be just anymore the planning board and the conservation commission, issuing separate permits. There's going to be one consolidated application and one single permit. So we don't know exactly how that's going to work yet. That's what this rulemaking process is about. And the siting standards haven't been formalized yet. So this is the opportunity for you and everyone else who cares about this to weigh in and to provide input to the state as they develop these new rules.
Yeah. Heidi, when you send this presentation, if you can also send it to me, good luck with the spelling of my email, but it's on there. I've sent it to your colleagues. And that's really a good notice for us of be involved with the siting, the solar siting issue.
Yeah.
Mhm. I can also forward you our latest monthly e-newsletter, which includes a blurb and a link on that as well. And then that'll give you an example of what our e-newsletter looks like if you're interested in signing up for it.
Thanks.
Great. Okay, well, thank you so much. Any other questions before I go?
I don't think so. Anybody? Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for the
I
work.
think-
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Heidi.
All right, thanks. Have a great evening. Thanks for all you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was really good.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Impressive, wow. Oh my God.
Okay. So number 3, we need to approve February's minutes. Anybody wanna make a motion on that?
I make a motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All right, updates. I'll do green communities. There's nothing new to report. We're still waiting. There's one last, document, I guess you'd say, that Green Communities needs, from one of the vendors. And they're just taking forever to produce it, so.
Yeah, so this has been really telling. It was great to get the Green Communities grant and to process it
Mhm.
has been challenging enough to have all the documents. Every I has to be dotted, every T has to be crossed.
Oh,
And this is one thing where you can't just have someone in town get the money and, sort
Oh,
of
no,
abscond with it.
It all has to be,
It's so many checks and balances. It's amazing.
mm,
but it's, I mean, it's good because it prevents waste. You know,
That's true.
then they know that it's all laid out exactly what needs to be paid for, and we get the money for that, and boom, it happens.
Is there a way to push that person that haven't give that,
They're pushing. It's, they need a map of the building, I guess, that
Mhm.
it's to prove the square footage or something. And Chris Desjardins, the business manager of the
Mhm.
schools, is excellent,
Mhm.
and because it's of Hopkins that they
Mhm.
need it.
yeah,
And I mean, he just keeps calling the company and saying, we need this thing, and also this other guy, what's his name? Somebody from Green Communities is also working on it.
Chris Mason and.
No, not Chris Mason, it's
Was
somebody else.
Kyle possibly?
Yeah, Kyle.
Okay. Very good.
So anyway, we're just still waiting for that, and as soon as that happens, then they'll have all of our stuff and hopefully they'll approve our projects. And then we'll get the money for them and we can get to work.
mhm,
But it has been a very heavy lift
Grueling,
to get this. It's been really eye-opening.
yeah,
but at least now we know how it goes.
Yeah. We do.
And I think our role has been to keep
mhm,
the people that, we can't ask for the quotes. We can't really do anything, but Jack and I have been the nudgers and the supporters, you
Yeah.
know, like. When we don't hear anything for a while, one of us will email and say, hey, how's it going? And that kind of, cause these people have other things to pay attention to.
that's what I'm thinking.
You know, and when you make the phone call and then move on to your other work and the person you call never calls you back.
Yeah,
Or calls you back like a month later. Anyway, so it's been,
yeah,
like. It's pretty interesting as all get out, actually. You know,
Catalina, if
and
this was
a lot of
tenant-
people working together to get it done. And perseverance, you
yeah,
know?
perseverance,
I mean, we
right.
know now, like, it's a slow process,
Yeah,
but it will happen.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, if this was a tennis match, you would have turned off the TV hours ago.
But
It is
it's
just
not.
amazing
No,
because
it's-
we'll serve the ball. And Chris Desjardins, to his credit, he looked at me in the winter and he said, don't ever be offended if I don't respond right away, but I'll respond quickly,
mhm,
as quick as I can. I mean, he's managing the budgets of Hadley Elementary and Hopkins. And was he there when you were there?
Mhm.
He seems pretty good.
yeah, he's very good.
You know,
So now we know, I mean, I feel like for us. I think once these projects are actually happening, once we've gotten some money and we're getting that work done. Then our job is gonna be to look at our energy reduction plan and figure out. Alright, what's the next building? And then. It'll be time to apply for competitive green communities
Mhm.
grants, but you know, we have people to help us with it. And so. Hopefully, we'll be ready to start on that like in the next couple of months.
and the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, some of the folks there have also been very helpful.
Yeah, me.
Because they know the language of this and helping us write the grants and all of this.
nice, yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, that's what's going on with green communities. So, the next thing, is the solar committee. So Kathy, you went?
Yeah, and Jack was there too.
So do you
can't write
wanna,
and
they
talk
were
at the
gonna
same
No, no, no,
discuss.
I can, but it's gonna be very broad, and this is something that really Michael should report on
Was
next
he
month.
there?
He was
Yes.
there. Is he the chair?
No,
He ran the meeting today, but I don't know if he's the chair. or not.
Okay.
he's not the chair.
Alright.
I don't think he's the chair. Anyway.
So, they had an agenda and many items. It was a very efficiently run meeting, I have to say. What they've done is they've looked at different possibilities. And Michael, when he originally took David Phil's plan and tried to
Wait,
move it.
you mean possibilities for the array or?
Well, hang on,
or-
and so I'll finish that thought. So somehow they were hoping for a 2 megawatt system.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed when they were walking it and mapping it, they're only getting like a megawatt and a half. So it was a little smaller than they
Right, they
anticipated.
didn't do the side lands, he said.
The-
The
Yeah.
pieces on the side,
Yeah,
they didn't.
so they're looking at that because that's 25% less than what they had anticipated. So they're doing some
Kind of a waste
investigations.
Not to use it.
And, so that was one part of it. And they have had a number of people who have stepped up, and then also a number of people who have volunteered their expertise to try to get this moving. They've also done some of the permitting that Kayla Lubriel, the person in charge of Hadley's Conservation Commission, she's been helping with that. So they're making some progress. One thing that they'll need to do is wait on Eversource and see what Eversource ultimately says
About the,
about the
Okay.
grid and if it's viable
Mhm.
with this project.
And when are we going to be able to hear from them?
I don't know, Michael told us before it can take like a year and a half.
Oof.
Yeah, he didn't say that today. He wasn't asked that exact question. But Eversource will determine grid requirements. The other thing that's sort of interesting is, actually, I'll mention this. One of my brothers has a field near there and he's interested in doing some solar projects. And the fact that they could have the landfill project
Mhm.
and possibly another farm lot project might incentivize Eversource for doing this.
Mm.
It's the world we live in.
Yes.
Well, it might be helpful to us because, is this Joe? If he wants to put in a large array, then he'll help put the bill for the upgrade.
Who knows how it will unfold?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so is this farmland he's gonna use?
Yes.
It's agri-solar.
What
What
is-
is it? What is the word?
it's like agri-solar.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's gonna farm it with
Yes.
something.
Yes. So what they do, and he has this in North Hadley too,
Yeah.
he has some arrays
Elevated,
in 15, 20 feet up, whatever, the measurements is probably about 15 feet, and he can grow some things
cool,
underneath it.
that's
Yeah, I've
awesome.
heard about that, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Now, it's not like he grows a lot of chickens or a lot of sheep, maybe he could or should, but there are a few other plants
Mhm,
that 2/3 of the light is enough light
mhm.
to get it growing.
Mhm.
Who knows how this will all unfold,
Mm.
but it's a great project to
Gotta
be
go
part
for
of.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Did you have any takeaways?
well, what about the battery storage? That was the
Oh,
big deal.
That's the other one. So John LaPierre said that there's, oh, I'm trying to remember that element name. It's not-
Three technologies, what we've been talking about. the
Vanadium or
lithium,
something?
The lithium ion. And then Solar Design had a different technology and I didn't quite catch what he said. I thought he said zinc at some point, but I'm not sure on that. And then the vanadium flow battery.
So it's interesting because the lithium has been very controversial. Occasionally it'll spark up and there'll be fires. But now they're looking at some new technologies with some
Mhm.
different elements
Mm.
as sort of their base. And that could be another opportunity.
Mm.
So Michael can explain
Yeah,
that to us.
he can explain it in so much more detail,
Mhm.
but there you go.
And what they seem to be doing, which is really good, is looking at startup cost as well as all the way at the other end, whether these things can be recycled again
Mhm.
and the lifespan.
Mhm.
Because they did mention that in what they expect for the life of the panels, should they go on the landfill, we would possibly need 3 sets of batteries, where the other 2 technologies would last the entire,
The non-lithium.
correct.
Yeah,
So
Oh, cool.
we may be coming in at this at an opportune time with battery technology.
well, and it amazed me that they not only looked at the startup,
Mhm.
but the end kind of cleanup and
Yes.
disposal and recycling. So they were looking at it very holistically.
Mhm.
Which is exactly what you want.
What
I
you-
never
what you
expected
do need-
to
Oh,
do that.
but we do need to do that.
I know,
That's
but I
part of
didn't
it.
expect to hear that on one of the opening meetings, that they would be addressing it, so.
Well, cause you know, there are certain people that are gonna just zoom right in on that.
But it's important.
Yeah, and it's
And
important,
it is,
yes,
it
yes,
is,
yes.
so. I'm
You have
glad
to
they're
look at the
doing it.
whole package,
Yeah.
yeah, and they are.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cleanup day.
So, I started my day this morning sending out one more reminder email. And I think I included all of you
Yes.
on the committee. we are doing our cleanup day this Saturday. And what are the chances that next week there's gonna be all these days that will be 60 degrees? This Saturday
Saturday.
will not be. The Saturday, it seems like it's going to be a washout, and they mentioned it on the national
Rain, burning
news.
snow.
Rain and snow. So there, we had about 50 people sign up,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
And there were a few people who said today that they just couldn't because they're afraid of colds
Right,
or
right,
health
right, yeah.
issues. But we will be there at 8:30 at Hopkins
mhm.
with bagels in hand and trash bags in hand and,
And
you
you're gonna
know,
go no matter what, or you're gonna go weatherproof?
Do the best you
Wait,
can.
if it's pouring, are you gonna still do it?
we are doing this because here's part of the problem. And just keep this in mind for the future. It's always good to spread the word. So I started by asking Solid Waste Solutions, what are some days that would work? And they said they would work with us.
Yeah,
And then we looked at all the calendar,
yeah,
and we looked at Passover and Easter and
Right.
some of the upcoming holidays. This is a busy season. We also looked at school vacation. Because school vacation, either the first Saturday or the last Saturday, some students will likely be away.
mhm.
Right.
And the 12th
So
was the best by
50,
far.
how many are students? Did you get a bunch of students this time?
Well, we hope to, I spoke with Ruth Ann Fitzgibbon
Mhm.
today, and she said there are some students who have signed up for it, not dozens and dozens. It also unfortunately hits when they're doing a big production, a big play. So a lot of the students are going
Busy
late on
with that,
Friday
yeah.
and may have another performance on Saturday. So we're not gonna have a lot of students, but it is amazing to have
50 is a lot of people.
40,
That's nice.
50 people from the town signing up, including the mosque up the street.
Oh, awesome.
They have a big crew coming in,
Good.
and there are also Denise Barstow Mans. She has a group. I don't know if it's Girl Scouts or some Hadley youth group, and they'll be doing some cleanup. And, you know, she has
Maybe
Longview Farm.
4-H or something.
Maybe it's 4-H, but Longview Farm, you know, Barstow's
Yeah.
little bakery and all of that. So they'll be doing some cleanup.
Mm.
So I strongly encourage anybody who's watching the video, make sure you wear bright colors on a gray day
Mhm.
for safety's sake. I encourage people not to clean up on Route 9. It's a state road and all that, but just be safe because it's a real concern.
Yeah,
And again, a shout out to Solid Waste Solutions, to Tandem Bagel for donating 4 dozen bagels. And for Home Depot, that actually came in with a lot more bags and gloves and everything else. So there have been a lot of people who've stepped up.
mhm. Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you. for-
You already
This-
have those
this,
bags.
this is the 5th annual.
Yes,
I do.
Can I get a couple from you because, so we ordered compost bins with Northampton. They came in, we got 20 this time, which is too many to store over here behind the dumpsters. So he wasn't too happy about it, but, Scott McCarthy did come to the north. So Jane and I went. She's like, oh, we can just throw them in the back of both of our cars. And I'm like, 20 is a lot. We're gonna have to make 2 trips. And we got there when she saw this tower of compost bins. I said, so look at. This is Northampton DPW. They're storing them they store them outside here next to this building. Isn't there somewhere at our DPW where we could do that? She goes, let me call Scott. So she talked to him. He's like, I mean, he wasn't very happy, but anyway, so he hopped in his truck and he came and got him. And he said, give me a couple days to even get him off the truck, so I haven't been over there yet, but. The reason, this is the long way around to why I want a couple trash bags. They're being stored outside. And, you know, they're earth machine, and they come with that little slide up door. I need some large black trash bags to store those, the sliding doors in, cause they're in plastic, but it leaks. And the instruction booklet's in there. So can I get a couple from you?
Come on over tomorrow.
Okay,
Claire's off work, so maybe you can, it's best if you can come in at noontime, like
Okay.
right at, 12:20, I'm done with my classes for a
Okay.
half hour, okay?
Yeah,
All right. And just text me on details,
okay,
okay?
okay, so what's our next?
Do you wanna talk about press release?
No, you go ahead, you're the one that did it.
So we wrote a letter, Kathy and I worked together to do this. And let me just read the first 3 paragraphs and then I'll just give you the highlights of the next few paragraphs. We were hoping that the Gazette would publish it. Didn't quite happen. If you didn't see
Do a little
today,
article though.
they did a little article today about the cleanup day, which was good of them. I tried their link, it didn't work, but anyways.
I did too, it's dead as a doornail.
So 5 years ago, then Hadley Select Board member, and this is also good for you to all have the history of this. 5 years ago, then Hadley Select Board member Christian Stanley got approval for and began the Hadley Climate Change Committee. So we've been in business for a little over 5 years now in our town. The first few meetings took place just as the COVID pandemic began, and with a handful of fellow citizens, we joined together and began brainstorming what we could do to make our town buildings be more energy efficient. Recently, the Hadley Climate Change Committee presented to our current select board what we've accomplished over the last year to save the town money on energy costs, to make our municipal buildings more energy efficient, and inform our neighbors about these important issues. Worldwide, the year 2024 was the hottest on record based on NOAA findings. Many people in Hadley farm and know exactly what these findings represent: droughts, floods, heat waves, problems in getting things to grow, and issues with the harvest. These ever-rising temperature charts are scary and present problems now and for the future. So we talked about last year's Farmers Roundtable. We talked about the Green Grant in municipal buildings and what we did with that. We talked about solar panels here and on the landfill. And we also talked about how we have the signs getting painted by the kids, the 7th graders.
And
At
installed.
Hopkins, and installed by the DPW, which is amazing. And then about cleanup day. I'm gonna revise this and I'll summarize the cleanup day a little shorter. Maybe they'll print it if I send it in another time.
I think he printed what he's gonna print. Can do another one next year.
But this was really a pretty good year.
Yeah, we've gotten a couple of really significant things done.
Could you send that to us? Why do I feel like I knew that information?
And you probably did
Did
get
you
a
send
copy
us
of
a-
it.
No, well, what we did a couple months ago is we summarized what we shared with the
Okay.
select board. And it
Okay,
was, that was the
Very sim-
basis for this.
Yeah,
All
some
right,
of
thank
it,
you.
yeah.
But I'm happy to also send this to all of you because you should have the history. I mean, it shouldn't just
Well, now
live.
that you've made it part of the meeting, it becomes part of the meeting, so.
But I also have an electronic copy, you know.
yeah,
there's
actually
so-
send me that.
Yeah, all right, so here,
Well, and I have that, right? Because after you do the minutes, then when I go to post them, that's when I can attach it to the PDF.
if I remember, I'll send it out to everybody because it's good to have the history. That's important in a town,
Yeah.
in a small town. So send to Kathy, send to all,
Okay, thanks.
and then Kathy trash bags.
Yeah, so you want me to come tomorrow? What is tomorrow, Thursday?
Tomorrow's Friday.
Right. This week has just been like, oh my gosh.
And I think on the next thing, we need to table it because we have 2 people out.
What?
Or
No,
discuss it. and
Okay, you
then
can-
no, I
bring
don't,
it
it's
back.
not table,
Okay,
because you
all right.
want to be done.
Go for it. I need to
Okay,
hear what.
well, you
everybody
go
has to
for it,
say.
make your announcement.
Well, so I would like to rotate off being co-chair and shift that onto someone else. I have learned that working with Kathy was so much better than doing this alone. It's been amazing, and we've done this for a couple of years,
Yeah,
and it's been.
I know, I
really
think
fun.
we're gonna be like, what do you call it? Jonesing, like we're so used to, well, we probably will keep texting each other anyway,
Mhm.
but, yeah, we kind of keep a steady thing going. It's really not that big of a commitment unless you're already maxed out, which you are. You just don't have time for any of this.
We
now.
started another round of negotiations for our contract and I'm on the negotiating committee.
Mhm.
Our last negotiations took us 14 months to negotiate a 1-year contract
For your school, you
for my
mean?
school.
Ouch.
I know.
Okay, so, but
Yeah.
let's stay focused on this. So let me just tell you guys something that, you know, the way Jack and I have done this, part of the beauty for the rest of you is that Jack is a teacher and he's gone at this committee like a teacher. And he thinks up all this cool stuff to do at our meetings. And I don't necessarily think of all those things so much. So with Jack not providing that, you know, and letting everybody else basically be lazy and not really have to think about things too much, I'm gonna be calling, you know, if you guys want interesting topics like this, I mean, some things I do, like the Hampshire Conservation Commission. That was my thing. I thought of that. But anyway, I'm gonna be asked, you know, it's not, it shouldn't be only up to the chairs to think up what the committee is gonna do. That's not really the role of the chairman. We're supposed to be facilitators, but because of the way his brain works,
Mhm.
it has been like that, kind of. So I'm just kind of putting you guys on notice, like, and you, maybe you do have things. Like you wanted to do the compost promotion last year and we did that. And I keep thinking, you probably have issues you'd maybe like us to address. I don't know, maybe not. But, whether anybody steps up or not, I'm gonna be looking for a little bit more involvement from everybody. Because there's no way I can do by myself what the two of us have been doing together, because I don't bring to it what Jack does. So I have my own,
Well,
Whatever.
and regardless, any one of us is gonna approach it our own way.
Sure.
exactly. So, and that's a good thing. I mean, I'm not gonna keep doing it forever,
Mhm.
so even if I end up doing it by myself, I do really do not have time.
My concerns are twofold, or threefold. One, I'm the newest member of this group. I have the least historical knowledge. Two, I do have a very full plate, however, that's not the main issue. But having attended these meetings, you know, for over a year, I don't feel I have all the connections, like, you know, all these people
Mhm.
in all of these organizations. And it may have been the 5-year process where you learned who all of these people are. So those are the roots of my hesitation. Can I type out an agenda? Can I do these mechanical things? I can do those things really easily. But whether I can set an agenda,
Well,
It's a
you would be
different
doing
topic.
it by yourself. That's the beauty of having two people, is that. Like, I know how to set an agenda. Will we, you know, 8 meetings out of 12 have a presentation like that? Probably not, because I just don't. I get a lot of emails, I get a lot of newsletters. And, you know, and I'll think of some stuff, but some of it. Like, it won't seem important to me, but it does to Jack, so we end up doing it, and, you know, I think people enjoy it, And some of the things that I think of end up being like, well, no, that's what, like, no, I brought up the, building, you know, expanding our building code, which I'm glad we looked into that,
Mhm,
because when all is said and done.
it was educational.
Well, I myself felt like, no, I don't really want this. If it was, you know, building code for net zero, then yeah, but it doesn't require people to have solar. It just requires them to be all electric, which is super expensive, you know, you're gonna do all that. To make it so you are making your own electricity, then, you know, that's what's gonna really work. But anyway, so,
Catalina, are you interested?
we're not around enough.
No, I like all the time living like.
Yeah.
For 1 month, another month, yeah,
When you had a series of the silent retreats that you had
Right.
gone to,
yeah.
Are you still doing that?
Yeah, I'm going to leave like in May and then I'm going to leave again in October. So yeah.
Where are you going in May?
As is in Barre, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Barre, yeah, inside meditation.
So how long will you be there?
I'm going to be 1 week and then another week. Yeah. So I think that the next meeting I won't be here. Yeah.
So how do you want me to handle this?
Or you can
Well,
just be done.
can I
Yeah.
just say another thing?
Yeah,
The last couple of meetings in our March meeting, we didn't have a quorum. We need to get a couple more people on.
Yeah.
well, talk it up around town. I mean, we're open to it.
So, hey, Helen, are you still here?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
So we're often looking for new members. It's just something.
We have one
you-
open seat right now.
We have one open
Interested?
seat right now. I don't know if it's something you or your husband would be interested in doing. And I don't know if there's issues, about citizenship and things like that, if that's a concern. Helen's from England.
Yeah, my concern is that if I go and visit my parents in England, I may not be able to come back to the next meeting.
Right. Yeah,
Well, I mean, do you have plans to leave? Do you have
I
plans to
have,
go?
yeah, unfortunately, one of my parents is not well, so I'm going backwards and forwards at the moment. And then we have my in-law here who is not well either, because
Are
that's
you,
the age we're in.
are you a United States citizen or no?
No, I'm a green card holder.
I see, which is no guarantee these days, is it? Oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, it's embarrassing what he's
yeah,
doing.
well, I'm sorry about the health issues.
Oh,
that you-
well, bless you. It's all the lovely people that apologize to me. There's really no need. It was my decision to be here, and I knew the risk of what might be happening right now.
Right. All right, so,
But that is,
there an
Yeah.
If I say yes to this, clearly we can work together, but can we still reach out or
Well,
can I still reach
yeah,
out?
I am, what I'll do is.
okay, now just wait, because every time I've contacted you in the last 2 months with every responses, I have to go. I can't talk right now. I mean, if you want to be done, then be done.
No, if I wanna be done as the chair, I need to write a letter. I just need to know that you have somebody else coming in as support. That was my question.
Well, hopefully. I mean, I think it's better if we work on stuff
Oh,
together.
no, I understand that, but at some point, I may have an idea. And you being a teacher, I know. No,
I'd rather you.
I would
come
guess
to
that I
me
would
with
get
the
it fast.
idea.
Oh, yes, of course, I would not leave you out. It would be
Yeah.
Kathy, I'm thinking of this, I'm gonna talk to Jack about it.
Yeah.
It would go like that.
If
You
you're-
would not be left.
So I try to be as responsive as I can. You know
No,
that I'm
just
always,
saying, you are maxed out and I think we need to respect that. You know, you wanna.
Well, I wanna make it perfectly clear, I'm very much near the max as well, and I think all of us on this committee are in that, a similar
Marion's
situation. Right.
busy, and I know Michael
And
has a
Mike,
friend
yeah.
who's sick. And
Yeah.
I think he's at the hospital tonight, so
So we're doing the best
Yeah,
we can.
we are doing the best we can.
Well, right, and actually, it says on here, our next meeting is May 8th, but I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
here. My sister's coming to visit and we're
Nothing
doing,
like baptism under fire, is there?
well, you know what, so if we skip a meeting, it's not the end of the
Yeah.
world, you know,
Yes,
we could just.
That's also
flat
an
out,
important thing to do.
Instead of having these puny little meetings that we don't reach a quorum and, or there, you know, half of us are missing or what. We're not doing anything urgent right now.
Right.
We're in kind of a waiting. I feel like our next action is more energy efficient projects, energy efficiency
And
projects.
continuing the work with solar.
Right,
Yeah.
but, well, solar has kind of been turned over to the solar committee now. It's up to us to keep track of it, but they're the ones doing the work. Our actions, our work is the energy efficiency
Yeah.
in our buildings.
So,
And that will be our next push. But until this current one gets up and rolling, I just don't feel like it makes any sense to ask anybody to start trying to get quotes. I just don't wanna do it yet. I wanna wait till this one gets rolling. So anyway, my sister's coming to visit. We're doing a family dinner Thursday night. That's the night that works for everyone, so unless
Do
you
you wanna
guys.
just move it to June?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, let's just
Yeah.
skip a month, you know,
Yes.
you're gonna be away.
I'm going to be away, right?
Will you be back in June, maybe?
June, what is that?
Well, it's the
June?
second Thursday of the month.
I should be. I,
Well,
I would, let me see.
What's the-
I have
And
it.
Helen, you know, anytime you want to be involved or share any ideas, I mean, feel free while you're in the States. We're always looking for new ideas, new perspectives, so
June 12th.
June 12th. June
Yeah,
12th.
I'm not going to be here. Let me see. I'm going to be leave the May.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah,
that,
actually, I am. I'm June 2nd. I will be back.
okay. And I think Jane said, I just need to compose a very short statement and send it to the select board.
Mhm.
But I'd still like to be a member of this committee.
Yeah, good,
We would
I
like to have
think-
you.
I
because
think-
you know, you're gonna. If this trash collection thing is gonna happen, you're gonna be the one to head it up every year.
You
Well,
like it.
unless somebody
your
else
pocket
wants to.
already.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about what snowsuit I can wear and things like that. A few years ago, we had to cancel it because it snowed. Yeah,
One thing that I will be suggesting is like if we can invite people to come to this meeting. So if there's a way like to, we have a recruiting letter that we can send all of us to all our friends. The only problem is like last time I brought that friend of mine and then he came with such ideas like, so that, oh my God,
All right,
remember?
yes, I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah.
But you know, Helen came by my place to pick up some bags because they
Yeah.
have some different hours on Saturday.
Right.
And we met and I just said, come join us,
Yes.
come see what it's like, and
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah.
And that's a good idea, just to keep recruiting, but you know, I think it's not unique to our committee, that there's so many different town committees. And I see it in the Gazette and some of the different articles where in a number of towns, they only have one or two elections that really matter because they don't even have other people running for the other committees.
Mhm.
and I think lots of towns have committees that have empty seats.
Yes.
It's hard to get
But
people
if we
to,
put the word, like right now, everybody's so aware of climate change. Everybody wants to do something,
Yeah.
do. So if we can put like a announcement, like we have like anyone wants to come and join us and we meet.
well, if you wanna write something up, we can ask Jennifer to post it on the town, that.
Yes,
The front, I call it the
Yes.
front page of the
Okay.
website.
That's a
where
great idea.
Announcements are,
And
we can put it on the Hadley Community Facebook page.
right, yeah.
I'll put it,
And
and
maybe
each of
like
us can share it
And
on
then
our,
post it in the post office with like Hadley climate change,
Yes.
looking for your members.
and in the library.
And on your idea, what I'll do when we have 30 people, 40 people, 20 people, however many people will come out in the rain for cleanup day, I will also mention that we are looking for interested people
Yeah,
to join us.
tell them we need one.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's necessarily a limit, traditionally, we have had X number of people,
Oh, I thought we were a 7-member committee, like the.
maybe we are.
Or,
That's what I thought.
It's been a long time since we were at 7.
well,
Right
since
now, we
Kelly,
are
Six.
six.
Yeah,
we need to be an odd number, I guess. For voting purposes for some
Maybe.
reason, but we used to be 7 for a long
Yeah,
time, we
yeah.
were 7 until Kelly left and we just haven't.
but after Susan left.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm. So we've just been down a few. Yeah,
Well, anyway,
yes.
All right,
there must be one person in town.
I'm sure.
I'm sure there's 46
Mhm.
people in town.
That
It's
will-
just what you had said, Catalina. How do you find them?
Yeah,
Because-
because.
There are people who are interested.
Mhm.
It was a challenge even for the library trustees to find someone to run. which we have found,
You did?
well, by write-in. Mhm.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Who is it?
I think her name is Audrey Adult or something. She's maybe a UMass professor
Oh, I know
who's
her.
interested.
Yeah,
Can you find out and let us all know? Cause it's a write-in, right?
Yeah.
Unless you know who it is, you won't know who to write it in,
Right.
right?
When I send this letter to all, I'll also put library trustee.
Okay.
So I guess to finish the co-chair change, yes, I will
You'll do it.
do it.
Okay, good.
thank you.
So here, so just let me share briefly, so you have to take a breath, like the logistics. Okay, so tonight we met.
Mhm.
Usually it's about you don't have to think about it for a while, for about 2 weeks. And then about two weeks.
It's kind of like the minutes.
Exactly, like it's not something you have to think about all the time.
Right.
Like sometimes. I mean, I'll. Back up a minute. Between Jack and me,
Oh, could we finish
Yeah.
the meeting? And
We
then
should finish the
come-
meeting
oh,
and then if you wanna
Yeah.
talk about
okay,
it.
all right,
I'm
so
exhausted.
there's no public comment. Did you wanna make a public comment? Yeah, what's your name?
Helen, do
Helen?
you have any,
No, I'm good.
design-
Thank you. I'm just a rookie today.
Okay, so our next meeting will actually, what did we just say?
June 12th.
June 12th. Okay, so somebody.
And Helen, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you all.
And it's good to know you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
yeah,
Thank
Yeah.
you. I will be out there on Saturday around Mount Warner.
Oh,
Cleaning up.
Anna.
Well, you may just wanna watch the weather.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
just be careful.
With an umbrella.
Get
yes,
the raincoat.
rubber boots. you
I'm
can wear-
English. I'm good with rain.
That's true.
Okay, thank you,
All
Good
right.
to meet you. Bye.
okay, bye-bye.
And do you wanna close the meeting?
Yeah, so what time is it? 8:20?
8:20, yeah.
So somebody make a motion to adjourn,
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
somebody second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.